Transform your product idea into a business reality. My name is Callie Keene, and this is End Hype. All right, to dovetail on our conversation about these innovation challenges, I want to really get deep and start talking about what makes effective pitch decks, right? So we've talked about, templates, and we've talked about the different components for it, but now I want to go in the other way. I want to talk about some of the big mistakes that people make that really just make judges, investors shut down, right? Let's do 4 major mistakes that startups put in that turn off the audience, that turn off those judges. It almost rules them out right from the beginning. So, to just give a little background, if you didn't catch the podcast episode or you haven't seen some of the videos that we're putting out on YouTube and Facebook about the innovation challenges, there's these large-scale funding programs that are put out by government agencies, large corporations, even some charitable organizations. They really care about a certain high-demand global need, so hunger, disease, power, water, a lot of environmental things, a lot of knowledge things. There's some challenges around education right now, of course, challenges around disabilities, a lot of different areas. Really, what we've seen is that if you have the skills and the desire to solve challenges that are at that kind of big human level, there's equally large, passionate organizations willing to fund ideas in those spaces. And a lot of the initial funding is just based on a pitch deck. So sometimes there's a short video, and that short video could just be, like what we're doing right here and running through a pitch deck. So that's why when we're talking to smart people with ideas, people that are looking to, quit their job, start a business, we really focus on what comprises a great business model and how we can express that business model through a succinct, coherent pitch, what we call the perfect pitch, right? And, that's all well and good. People go out and they find all these templates and they make like 100 slide decks. So it has every piece of information and it's loaded up. And I see that a lot because we work with technical people, so engineers, academics, and they're like, I have to put every piece of information in there. So that is an aside. A bonus mistake, a meta mistake, is that the point of a pitch is to get questions, to get feedback, to get that second meeting. It's not to impress people that we know every bit of information about everything that's going on, because you don't, right? Until you actually start and you make progress, you have a lot of assumptions. Maybe you've formulated those assumptions more scientifically into a hypothesis that you believe because of this, that this is true in this quantity, right? Hypothesis being essentially a testable, measurable assumption, right? Maybe you're at that level, but most likely they're just kind of rough guesses and cobbled together and supported by research, which doesn't really help a business run. So like when you put more information, it's probably also incorrect, but that's kind of at the whole presentation level. So just know that any presentation, any piece of content, it's really partially sales and partially entertainment, right? You're there to engage somebody, pique their interest, and move forward. And that's really where people mess up the entire way. But there's certain slides, it seems like people trip up on every single time. And we run lots of pitch nights. So I've been a part of a few community organizations where we've had, pitch night every month for years at a time. So heard a lot of pitches, and I see a lot of the same mistakes. And it might be okay for you to pitch a community like that and you'll get some feedback. But if if you pitch a competition like these innovation challenges like that, people will see right through that you haven't really done the homework. You don't have the business acumen or experience that you would need to be investable or to be, ready for that kind of partnership. So let's go through these real quick. So one of my absolute favorites, and the one we'll kick this off with, is ridiculous revenue projections. Guys, stop it. Like, probably the most common example of this is saying like, hey, how many people wear shoes in America? What's the average value of shoes that they purchase? So that means that shoes are $1 trillion market. And if I just capture 0.001% of the shoe market, I'm going to be a chameleonaire. I'm going to be so rich that I'm going to pay everybody back. And this is what people do, is they plump up the total addressable market into these insane figures. Now, there's zero reason why your customer avatar is going to be everyone that wears shoes, because you're not solving a problem. That's just saying people that have feet, which, so, on average, slightly less than 2, right? So it's a lot of people. There's nothing specific about that. It's not marketable to, and there's no compelling reason that you're giving that why any percentage would want your product at all. So that's one style of those projections, saying like, hey, my total addressable market is this, and if we just capture a little bit of this, we're going to be doing big things. So that's totally ridiculous. The other thing is to show projections like, we've gotten 5 users. Next month, we're projecting 10, and then we're projecting 20, and then 40, and then, it'll just double every month into infinity until we have 1 billion users. So there's really no reason, unless you follow our traction strategy and you can demonstrate that you have built a model around the projections, that those are true. And they are just assumptions, based on the information that you have. So you'll see people say things like, well, a conservative estimate of year 2 revenue is, I'm like, well, you're not even running a business yet, let alone have a product. So how do you know what a conservative estimate is? Most startups and most small businesses, they fail to meet those kind of projections, right? Most businesses aren't even profitable for the first year, maybe 2 years of their existence. So skilled and experienced business people know this, judges know this, investors know this. So when they see that classic, up and to the right kind of graph, they know that you're phoning it in, right? You've got to support these projections with, like, why is it going to happen? How can it happen? How does your unfair advantage or your go-to-market strategy or different elements of your business, like talking about our traction model, like how does that actually influence that growth? How is it supported? So a lot of successful pitches are based on supporting this with action, and then a lot of unsuccessful pitches are supporting this based on argument, right? So we say the scientist versus the debater. The debater is like, hey, I've done these things in the past. I feel this way. It would be natural to assume, just a lot of nonsense. Whereas the scientist says, we're going to implement this strategy. This is what's working right now. Here's the data to prove this thing. And then admitting that there's gaps in it, right? On a simple level, I'll put it to you like this, is if you've ever done Facebook ads, a Facebook ad that you put in $2 a day or $5 a day doesn't perform the same as an ad that you put $50 a day, and definitely doesn't perform the same as one that you put $5,000 or $50,000 in a day, right? There's no linear scale to how those work. Even if we have a large audience that we're pushing money into, and we have great creative, and we have great copy and image and we have a great landing page, it's not linear, right? I can't just get the same results for $50 and say, now I can invest to the moon and get the same ROAS all the way up, with infinite money. Then people would just find an ad that works, sell something and pour infinite money into it and become billionaires right overnight. It doesn't work like that. And your whole business won't work like that either. So that's number one, ridiculous projections. Okay. Number two, I'm a fan of all of these actually. So number two is saying that there's no competition. There is no product on earth that is like the product that we're about to put out. Because of our capabilities and because of our feature set, there's no competition that is like ours. Now, I fully agree that there should be no product exactly like yours, and I think that you should have an unfair advantage in the market. So when you identify actual competitors, direct and indirect, you can say that this is the unfair advantage that we bring to the market because we have the best team, we have the best technology, we have the best partners, one or all of those three things. And if you don't know what the hell I'm talking about, go back and watch the YouTube video on unfair advantage, because competing is for losers, right? But when you say that there's no competition, it means that you lack any sense about research and that you lack business knowledge, because for every idea, nothing is the biggest competitor. No change, inertia, the status quo. I don't have to do anything. I can exist without your product. So how is your product, your solution, compelling enough to get me to switch from my comfortable couch over to your side of the room? So there's always competition, and knowing the difference between exact duplication, which is what most people think competition is, and customer choice, right? So a customer going to the market and presented with multiple choices on how a problem can be solved, those are different, right? So when you have emotional intelligence and you realize that your product, even if it's a novelty good, even if it's a tech good, even if it's a innovation, it solves a problem, right? Either an innate emotional problem, a human need, or an actual just gap in the functionality of a market, right? It solves a problem. And when you look at it from that problem-solving perspective, there's lots of other things that also address that problem. They're going to be in different ways, but your customer can choose any of those other solutions, even when one of those solutions is nothing. I'm not going to do anything. If I'm hungry right now, one of my solutions can be to wait. I don't have to choose between two fast food restaurants. I don't have to choose between one thing or the other. I can also delay. Even if it's urgent, I could do something tomorrow, or I could do something later. I can push it off. So how is your solution going to be compelling? And understand the competition and why you have an advantage over them, right? So this is for sure is like a giant red flag, right? When somebody says that there's nothing like their product, I'm like, okay, I could agree with that, but like isn't very scientific. It's pretty broad. So there's always competition. Always competition, right? But competing is for losers. Okay, cool. So that's number two. Number three, I think everyone can get on board with me on this, is buzzwords. Now, when you're deep in an industry, so like we're in defense manufacturing, and in the defense contracting world, we love buzzwords, and we love acronyms probably even more than buzzwords. And acronyms are like the lifeblood of business, probably manufacturing in general, but defense manufacturing, it's acronym city. So when you're trying to communicate, maybe in industry that's okay, but like if you're an experienced tech person in one world, and then you're competing in an innovation challenge or a pitch contest or trying to get a grant, and you're presenting this information, people just load it up with these industry jargon, buzzwords, little phrases that only mean something to a select group of people. You're not communicating to those people anymore. Those people are probably either your competitors or on your team. So most likely it is actually detrimental to you. It's not showing that you have this inside track, that you really understand your stuff. Maybe later down the road, it could help you with organic search returns, but more than likely, when you're trying to give a presentation to a room of people, if you want great feedback from them, you have to be clear, simple, right? Your communication should be easy to understand. And again, this goes back to that customer problem thing, is if I am able to communicate what the customer problem is and how that's been validated in the other slides, when I'm talking about the solution, it should be pretty easy to understand almost any idea through the pitch deck. It doesn't have to be that complicated. If your idea is a high science idea, right, you can follow that up with questions in the Q&A. You can follow that up with questions later, right? You can always have that other meeting, but you don't know who's going to be in there in the audience. You don't know who the judges are going to be, and communicating clearly maximizes your chances of getting feedback on your business versus just the tech, right? Someone who does an excellent job of this is June Brain. If you go back and watch our Hardware Cup video, you'll see that she won the DC Hardware Cup. She went on to win the National Hardware Cup prize, so I think that was $50,000. And she was a mentee in an incubator that I helped run about 3 years ago. Sam is very intelligent and could, if she wanted to, litter her pitch with nothing but scientific jargon, acronyms, and buzzwords. But instead, she's able to clearly communicate her idea, which has to do with measuring the eye for MS detection and tracking. She's able to communicate her idea on a problem and emotional level, and that really can drag people in. And then when they're interested, she can go in as deep as she would like in the technical aspects, because that's her background as a doctor. So great example of that, and not falling victim to trying to pretend that she's the smartest person in the room, although I would guess that is oftentimes the truth. But so moving on, number 4, and this can pop up in a number of the slides, but generally when we're looking at our go-to-market strategy or traction or any other type of projection slide, there will be an either implicit or explicit ask for capital. And there's a couple of reasons why this isn't good, is that from a legal investment purpose, there's different types of pitches, and oftentimes from a legal perspective, an investment perspective, you shouldn't actually be asking for money, you shouldn't be asking for investment, because you're not actually legally you're allowed to do that, right? But there is a lot of problems with decks. They'll say, like, we're going to get to this standpoint, and then we need this much money, and then we can get to this standpoint. So what you're really doing in that go-to-market strategy or your traction slide is you're saying that we have a hypothesis, the product is a hypothesis, people are going to want this, that is untestable without taking somebody else's money and gambling with it. So really when we look at investment in general, really even by extension these innovation challenges, because the corporations, they want to see their return on investment. Really their return is just seeing great businesses be generated, because they don't get equity. They just want the idea to exist. So they want to be able to take that back to their board of directors and say, look, 20 companies were founded and look how great that they're doing, or look at the additional investment that they've gone into the space, or they want something that supports their mission. And for investors, that's just the investment theory or their investment mission, but that's going to mean return on investment. They want something, right? Somebody wants something. And the mistake that people make is building an idea and presenting an idea that can only be tested with somebody else's money. There's no traction. There's no way to know if the idea is valid or invalid, right? Without rolling that dice. And, for my money, I'm going to invest in something where it's very clear they don't even need my money. That's what it is. I want to get on board a train that's about to leave the station, and I want it extremely clear how and when I'm going to get my money back, and have some vague idea in how much I could get my money back, right? It's difficult to answer all those questions, and we can put in a structure to show you how in more depth. It's kind of what we do through the traction portion of coaching. But more importantly, on the mistake side, on the flip side of this, is you're not there, begging for alms, right? You're not there, gambling with house money. What you're doing there on that traction slide is showing how you're going to be successful, not asking for what you need. So this is a big mistake that people make. It comes down to this emotional intelligence in selling. It's like, what are you selling, and what are the benefits that these people are going to get? People think that they just need to present a really good idea, and people invest in really great ideas, which, yes, but the utility of an idea often has to do with the success and the return on that idea, not that it's cool, right? So, the coolest idea in the world, if you show those chasms and you fail to have a clear strategy for crossing that chasm, from going from prototype to production, from some level of production to mass production, or to go from early adopters to mass market, like what's the strategy to jump that gorge, right? What's the bridge that's going to take you from point A to point B? Unless you can put a strategy together and say, this is how we're going to put these pieces in place, you can't solve, I want to build a product company, give me $1 million, I'll build a product and we'll get a lot of them made and then we'll all be successful. It doesn't work like that, because there's so many other pieces that have to be put into place to create a successful product business. It's not just idea, prototype, production. There's sales, and there's relationships, and there's team building. There's a lot of other pieces that need to be put into place that money can't solve. All that money is going to do is really heighten those issues. If I gave you $100,000 and then you went out and bought $100,000 worth of inventory, would you be successful? Probably not. You would just be sitting with a whole lot of product sitting in your garage. I couldn't get my money back and you couldn't make any money. So we need to be able to show that strategy without those big chasms, with those big gaps. So that's kind of the last big mistake that I see, not showing the path. But I probably have talked about this before, but I used to really hate pitch presentations, not because I I didn't like hearing about people's ideas because I love that, and not because I hated giving them. I love giving out the presentations as well. But what I hated about these pitches, and to this day I still really dislike this thing, is that people will run around their state, their region, giving out pitches because they want to win that like $200 or their $500, and they think that if they win $500 that the next pitch contest will be easier, or an investor will actually invest in them because they won something at a local college or a local community spot. And generally that's not the case, right? It just doesn't matter. The purpose of these pitches is to get that feedback and refine what we're talking about. Maybe snag a mentor, right? Maybe snag some industry person that can help guide you along the way. But it's not just there to win $200. It's maybe to prep you to win an innovation challenge, prep you to be able to build your communication so you can get a grant. It's maybe to prep you so your marketing is a little bit better. Like, you got to come in with a purpose. That's going to help you command the room. And this is one of those meta level pieces of advice, is really everything in sales. And this is sales, guys. When you're talking about your idea, this is as sales as it's going to get. But you're selling yourself, because your product doesn't exist right now. Your business doesn't exist. So you're selling yourself, the way you look, how confident you are, the research that you've done, right? What your team interaction is. All of those things combine. And you're there with that purpose. You're there to practice, to learn, to get feedback. You're there to win, right? You're there to win on that. We just did a little recording on this. Is like, I look at ideas, and because people are always asking about idea selection. Oh, I have so many ideas. Which one do I select? And I tell them, pick one that you wouldn't mind working 10 years on. And they're like, oh, I don't want to work on anything for 10 years. I think that I can make money next week if I sell this thing on Amazon. I'm like, that doesn't sound like a great story to tell your grandkids, right? It was like September. It was early September, and then like I sold this like wolf head mug on Amazon. Okay, great. Like 10 years from now, you won't even remember you did it. It's probably not the thing that you should be working on, right? So people are always thinking about idea selection, and when I look at these ideas, I think, okay, so I'm going to put this level of effort into something, and I'm going to put, I need to make sure that I do my research, and I make sure that I do the level of effort that's needed, right? I don't want to just put in all this effort and then fill in some junk mistakes, simple mistakes, or fill in some things to make me feel smart, or that I know what I'm talking about when I don't, because that's not going to serve that 10-year goal, right? I mean, I'd almost rather come in with an incomplete pitch deck and have people roast me and give me a lot of feedback and then be stronger for it than to fill in a bunch of, quasi-scientific information and everybody think, well, he really knows what he's talking about, and then just fall right on my face when I try to turn it into a business. So just bringing it back to where we are right now is we are putting out, we're jumping back on the webinar live, schedule. So every Thursday I'm doing a webinar right now, and we might be rolling that into more consistent live streams, because I really like doing the question and answer for you guys. And, with things being the way they are, not doing any of our in-person meetups, but I've been reaching out to people like crazy through Zoom and through, the other kind of digital formats. So we're going to try to bring that to our webinar, connect people with these innovation challenges, and work through some of the, the the pluses and minuses, the tips and tricks, mistakes of applying to them. We've had insane success in the past year and a half, 2 years with these. Somebody that we work with, I'm like almost embarrassed to say like how much money that they've won through the innovation challenges, but they have a couple million of investment on the line. They're competing on another one that's $1 million, and they've received 350 or 400K in cash so far from challenges, because they're also not mutually exclusive. You can apply the same idea to multiple of these challenges and get a lot of funding. But we're really into it right now, and people don't know how to pitch. They don't know how to put a deck together. So we're doing webinars about where to find these opportunities, how to apply, answering questions about, what makes a winning application. We've had a lot of people win in the past little bit here. So I feel like we're at a position, better than most on how to win. I think we've coached maybe 20 people that have applied successfully to these challenges. So it's pretty good, but we're going to try to roll that into some more lives. So if you can, look out for that. We'll be going live on YouTube, but also if you look at our Facebook page, I'm posting that up on there as well, so you can sign up there. And then, we'll be pushing out content, trying to hit each of those elements that you'd see on a perfect pitch and a slide. So we're just going to keep putting out content that addresses those questions that people ask. So if you'd like a more in-depth answer than I can give on the live stream, what we'll do is we'll take the questions from the webinar and from our live streams, and then that's how we're going to get more podcast topics, how we get our little shorts topics. We're just going to move forward. So do me a favor. If you're on YouTube, of course, meme it, smash the like button, subscribe, all the good things will come to you. Comment down below, all that stuff. But no, seriously, share out this information, right? That does it does a world of good for us, but also somebody, right? You know somebody in your office, you have a friend that has a ton of ideas, right? And that you want to pursue that idea with them, they want to pursue that idea. You know what I'm talking about. Connect our content with that person. Just bring me one friend, right? If you go on the channel trying to put out pretty targeted content that's specifically for technical people that want to transform their idea into a product. Right now, we're really focused on getting those ideas funding. In the future, we'll be talking about how to transition those from a funded idea into a marketed, actual manufactured product. It's a huge, huge problem, huge knowledge set to go over. But I want to produce a ton of content on just getting you guys paid, because it doesn't make any sense to go over how to market a product and how to manufacture a product or any of that stuff until we have a ton of content on how to actually get some funding, right? And I hope that makes sense. It makes sense in my brain because I've talked to hundreds and hundreds of people just like yourself, and the most common problem that people have is, of course, they don't have $100K to drop on building their products, so they feel like their dreams have to be on delay, and it's just absolutely not the case. There's definitely, the money is out there, it's looking for a home, and we can show you how to pull that idea together in a concise, clear way and connect you with the funding to get started. So anyways, appreciate you. My name is Callie Keene, and this is End Hype.